Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. In the last video I got this third version of our BMI HTML CSS JavaScript program to work. Let's run it just so you can see what it looks like, and then I'm going to go back and add comments. So I come in and let's leave it blank. Please enter a valid height between 12 and 96. If I enter something out of range, should get the same message, and I do. Should have cleared that out, I guess, but that's okay. Let's put in here a 72. Then let's do the same thing in here. We'll leave it empty. Must enter a weight. Notice it's set up as a number field, so you can't put anything non-numeric in it. Again, I should go and set that up. So it says 16.54 underweight. I can clear it and show totals. There you go. So it all works. So let's go back and take a look at it. Hopefully by now some of the stuff, at least in the HTML, is making sense. Again, we set that up as a div. So why? So the reason that you set things up like that for a div is if I want to go and be able to do something for every single line that's in between the div tags, if I give it an ID or I give it a class, I'm able to handle all of it at once. All right. All right. So notice it says here 0 and it says category. Well, if I run this again, there's the 0 and there's the category. All right, so that's what's in that container. And then we've got the overlay. Now this is not made visible when the program starts, okay? And one of the errors that I had was I called this close totals button, whereas I was using it in the JavaScript as close totals box button. And that's one of the reasons it wasn't working. Also, I went in here because I was having so much problems getting this stuff to line up. So I put a span in here with a class of ACC for accumulator label. All right, that's what they are. They're accumulators. So basically, that's what I had to change in here. All right, in here that this was fine, this was fine, but in here I had to add this span with these classes. All right, I don't think I really need to put any comments in there. Hopefully you agree with that. So. Alright, so let's take a quick look at the CSS, which I typically don't comment or comment very little, if at all. Alright, font family, dropping the margin and the padding, setting a background color for the whole thing, which is a little bit off-white. Our container, making it a max width of 400 pixels, and you saw that it was fairly narrow. Alright. It had a margin of 50 pixels auto. The auto basically is going to center it. All right, the background color is white. There's padding all around it, and there's a border radius of 8 pixels. All right, our H1 tag has got a margin bottom on it, so we put a little space in there, and the color is just a little bit off black. The form also has a margin bottom, so notice the H1 and the form both have the same thing. This is where I had to make some changes. For the label, the form labels, I told them to be right aligned and the inputs to be left aligned. All right. And the labels themselves, and this really could have said form here, but that's fine. Display block, which meant put each one on its own line, set some margin, set a color. These are the two inputs that we have. All right, we're letting the width be calculated for us. We put some padding in there, some bottom margin, and a border. Okay, here's our button. Again, Background color just made it kind of a blue so it stood out. The color of the text is just white. Remember FFF, since it repeats, FFF is the same thing as FFF, FFF. Alright, no border, a little bit of padding, a little bit of border radius. Cursor set to pointer, so when you highlight it like that, it turns into a pointer, and a little margin. Hover, we change the color a little bit. Hopefully you can tell when you hover. This is a little bit darker. Alright. The result is literally just that. Some padding in there. Background color, again, it's a little grayish. A little border radius. The result has got an H2 tag in it, and that's again a little bit off black. The paragraphs have got some margin. They're a little more gray than the others. Then I had to make some changes in here for the overlay. Alright. And the reason for that is I had all sorts of problems getting stuff to line up. Alright. Again, the display none, position fixed, inset 0. I think I mentioned before that's a shortcut for saying basically margin 0, 0, 0, 0. Z index 1000, so when it does appear, it overlays everything else that's in front of it. Center it, align the items to the center, make the background color a grayish. When it's visible, we want to use flex. Alright, as you can see with the totals box, you can read the stuff that's in there. A couple key things. The minimum width is 280, the maximum width is 360. The H2 tag in there is being centered and it's got a little margin in it. The totals box paragraphs, this is another one I had to change. Alright, these are our accumulators. So we're saying we want some space in between. Alright. The last one, we remove the bottom border. These were those labels that I mentioned to you. So they're left aligned. Alright, this is everything else that's in there. So this is that button that's in there, for instance. No, it's not. This is the button that's in there. Alright, and finally, let's go and add some stuff into the script tag. Let's add some comments in here. Alright, now some of this stuff should just make sense. Okay, underweight is just that. Okay, and where I had a problem was in here. In fact, now that I'm looking at this, I don't know if I need these. Underweight. Let's try this. I don't want to ruin the program, but I do want to see if I need these or not. No, I don't need that. Or that, I think, or that. I do need these. And one thing I wanted to add up here was let height, just set it equal to 0. And same with weight. Now, these are accumulators. These are the total number of underweight people, the total number of overweight people, the total number of optimal weight people, the total number of obese people. This is the height and weight that we're reading in. All right. So this is the code that executes when the calculate button is clicked. All right, since it's the calculate one, I put those constants in here. Did we have to? No. We could have put them out here. It wouldn't have mattered one way or the other. So again, this is the minimum allowed height. Then we've got the maximum allowed height, the minimum allowed weight, and the maximum allowed weight. All right, this is grabbing All right, so this will, how about retrieve the height and weight values entered into the associated input elements. All right. Then, as it says, this is a height check and this is a weight check. All right. Height empty and range checks. This is the empty part. This is the range part. So again, weight, empty, and range checks as well. Same kind of thing. All right, if we get down to here, so if we make it this far, a valid height and a valid weight were input. So calculate the BMI and then the BMI status, which is exactly what this does. BMI needs the height and the weight, so that's all that this does. So this will return the height and weight based on the imperial, which means use pounds and inches, imperial BMI formula. All right. So this says add the calculated BMI to the overlay. And this says add the calculated BMI status to the overlay. All right. So again, this will return the height and the weight. This is nothing new. All right. And this, so in other words, 18.50 is the smallest optimal BMI allowed. I don't know if allowed is the right word, but that's the one I'm going to use. $25 is the smallest optimal weight. The smallest overweight BMI allowed, and 30.00 is the smallest obese weight allowed. This will actually be the status, so this will be the underweight, overweight, etc. All right, so if this is true, BMI is less than 18.5. If this is true, well, if it was less than 18.5, they would have been caught in the first one. So it's at least 18.5, but it's less than 25. Why I did that, but this, if we get to here, all right, it's at least 25. In fact, it has to be less than 30. All right, so the BMI is less than 30.00. And if we get this far, the BMI is greater than or equal to 30.00. So we've done all that and we return the status. All right. So this, I want to be kind of consistent here. So let me grab this. This is the code that executes when the clear form button is clicked. So we're zeroing or blanking out the height, blanking out the weight, adding a 0 for text content for the BMI, and the word category with a colon and a space for the BMI category. So this is the code that executes when the Show Totals button is clicked. And all it does is it opens the overlay up. The open overlay, what is that going to do? This will fill in the overlay accumulators with the accumulator values. All right. This will make the overlay visible. All right. This is the code that executes when the overlay close button is clicked. And what does this do? Well, up above we said make the overlay visible. So what this one does is it will make the overlay invisible. All right, I don't think I did anything that should hurt the program as it was written, so I'll do a save all here. Go back. Oh, did I close the HTML? So run it one last time here. Oops, I guess it is still running, so let's close the one that is running. Let's just put in one valid value for each one. Oh, I did say that when we had the error message, let's blank out what's in there. All right, so let's see. Be in here. Grab that. So when we get an error, it's not an error, but it's when these range check fails. Let's not just do that. Let's also come in here and take the height and set it back so there's nothing in there. Oh, that was the weight. But let's do the same thing for the height. Okay, so let's double check that. So now when we run it and we put something invalid in there, again, we can't type letters, but if I put a number in there, we get an error message and it's blank. Now the other thing we should do too is to set the focus there. Don't know if we can do it like this or not. Let's check. So that would be focus. Let's see if that works. Copy that. And that would be the white. So again, file, save all. Let's run it once more. All right, we'll put in something invalid. We get the error message. There's our cursor, and it blanked out. In here, if we put in something invalid, we get the error message, it blanks out, and there's our cursor. All right. Oops. Okay, we've got one of each one in here. All right. Should have one of each one. There we do. I guess I could try to center this. I don't really care, to be honest with you. But for, let's see. And I don't remember how to do it, so let's ask how to center a button on a form using CSS. I don't know if that'll do it or not. It's a container. I'm going to try that. So let's go down to our button. That's it, close total button. We've already got display block, so we shouldn't need that. Let's see if margin 0 auto will center that horizontally. Did not. Huh. I thought that would work. I don't know if text line center would do it. We can try that too. I thought that would have just centered the text in the button, but we'll see. It doesn't look terrible the way it is. Still didn't work. Well, I'll take a look at it in just a couple minutes, see if I can come up with something better. But I think we're pretty much done with what we're working on here. It's 25 minutes, so I'll see if I can come up with a way to fix that. But in the next video, I'd like to move on to our payroll program. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing in that I'm going to write it twice. I'm going to write a simplistic version and then a more version with an inlay or something that looks more like this. All right, so I'll be back in just a few with that.